like to know how you two first met.
Is this a therapy session?
Yes. I've got some tissues, I'll just move them.
It was 2001?
Yeah, 15 years ago.
17.
Good.
Yeah.
You're good at maths. Good.
No,
Someone's across the detail.
15, 16 years
16?
ago.
16 years ago.
Yeah. How did we met at Endemol?
We met, yes, at Endemol. And you, like you don't know, you had just set up a company with a few other comedy writers.
You say that like I've got any kind of business skills whatsoever.
Yes, okay. You had someone you knew had amassed you into a little group and set up a company, and I was at Endemol with Tim Hinks and Peter Bazalgette looking after talent, and he managed to be one of those people, and we didn't hate each other instantly, so
that took time.
Yeah, okay. So 15 years we've been working together.
I mean, it's a unique partnership because oftentimes production and creative elements will be separate, but you two work very closely and extremely symbiotically, don't you?
Yes, I suppose. I mean, how would you say we function as a unit? We're both pedantic.
We are, yes, I suppose that is...
Are you pedantic? I would expect that of you, Charlie, but I'm surprised.
I mean, it's particularly with Black Mirror, I think, with an anthology, and when you're setting up your different alternative universes within each story, within each episode, there has to be a degree of pedantry, there has to be a level of detail to make the world feel authentic. And I think we're both very forensic, and we just love the minutiae of the worlds and the logic and the characters and the stories. So we both challenge each other in terms of level of detail, and
it's a nightmare, isn't it? Because we're both basically a bit OCD, and we're constantly, because each story often has its own sort of weird logical rule set underpinning everything, and so we're sticklers for sort of noticing all of that kind of dull, boring, life-crushing detail.
Will you show Annabel the script? Or will it be from the original idea, the original Inception? Will that be when you start sharing?
Yes, I mean we start discussing the story ideas generally. When we're planning a season, we'll start. Sometimes we'll sort of take a broad overview and we'll think, well, we're going to do six episodes. What genres haven't we done yet? Because we kind of think of the show as almost different genre pieces. So last season, for instance, early on, for instance, I was saying I wanted to do an episode set in the past. And it was like, well, so how are we going to crack that nut? What could we do about that? And we also knew that we were going to do a sort of police procedural, a detective story. So we sort of broadly knew that. And then we discuss sort of general ideas and themes, and then quite often at some point I'll suddenly think, here's an unpleasant idea.
Quite quickly you'll get to that point, yeah.
Usually it's an idea that makes me laugh and appalls you. That's a generalisation.
That's a gender stereotype, I won't have that. But there's a lot of chat. There's a lot of, chat about either things that are unsettling or worrying or preposterous or funny. And it just a lot of it is just chat and observations, and then Charlie normally finds a hook, and then suddenly it's what's the best way to tell that story.
It's if I get enthused about the sort of unpleasantness of a situation, that's when I know I'm itching to sort of write the story. And because they're always sort of what if scenarios, and so the whole series started by thinking, well, what if there was a situation? What if you had an episode of 24? That was sort of where it came from. If you had an episode of 24 in which Jack Bauer was blackmailed into fucking a pig, how would that play out if you played it straight? That was the original sort of starting point. And so it sort of stems from thoughts like that, and I get kind of, I guess, impishly excited about that side of things.
Because for me, as a fan of it, some of your thoughts are more obviously wrought than others. So if I think about Nosedive, which is the season opener for season 3, you can almost see the beginnings of that thought process, which is everywhere we go, we are now rating and ranking things that we buy. What if that then became applicable to humans and our social interaction? And then some of your thought processes are much more layered and hidden, and you sort of don't get the big reveal until the very end.
Yes. Well, quite often, I suppose, sometimes we... sometimes we're fortunate in that there'll be a sort of happy accident in that we'll be pursuing one story idea, and suddenly in the process of doing that, a different and better idea occurs. So we did an episode called White Bear, which has got a huge twist in it, and originally that didn't have the twist in it at all. It was a story so it was kind of like a zombie apocalypse story. And within the episode, there's a cover story that people tell to the main character in that. And that was what the story was, and I'd written the script and everything, and we were looking around for locations where we could shoot it. And suddenly I realised that where we were looking was on an old RAF base, and it had a fence around the whole thing. And I thought, well, actually, what if this story was taking place within a fenced environment? It was a theme park, and none of it was really happening. It was a much better idea. So in a way, that was an idea that came about through stages, I suppose, if you sort of mean. So sometimes that's San Junipero in season 3, which is the one set in the 1980s. That came about through thinking. We were trying to do a story set about somebody exploring the afterlife, or trying to work out if there was an afterlife, and that collided with a story idea about old people and nostalgia therapy for people with Alzheimer's. And suddenly, I can't remember, but suddenly the idea just popped up in the middle. I was just talking about it, and it suddenly became hang on, what if it was a love story?
Yeah. And it provides one of the only happy endings. I couldn't believe I was watching a happy ending when I watched that.
I was
Sorry.
How very disappointing of you.
I was really worried writing that. That was the first one I'd written for Netflix, for the Netflix season. And so there was a conscious decision to sort of reinvent what the show was. But I was quite nervous because it's not what you would expect from what you expect from a Black Mirror is somebody staring at a transparent phone in the future going, ugh, basically. And it was sort of happy and nice, and it had romance and hope.